Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hi, I'm Netalina Nasruddin, the CEO and the founder of Rise Up For You and the podcast host of the Rise Up For You podcast. We have another amazing guest for you today, but before we jump into our show, I want to remind you all that our show is completely ad-free and commercial-free. That's right. We want to make sure that you get full access to this podcast interview without any interruptions. So I have just a really small ask for you. We would be absolutely honored if you can share this podcast, send it to your family, your friends, your coworkers. Help us get the message out for this podcast because we are bringing you amazing interviews every single week with executives, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders that are here to help you become your absolute best. Share this podcast with anyone that you think would love to listen to it. Don't forget to subscribe and like so that you can get access every single week to the episodes that we're bringing straight to you. We appreciate you, and without you, this podcast would not exist. Okay, what do you say? You ready to jump into today's interview? I'll see you there. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Netalina Nasruddin, and I'm very excited to bring to you yet again another amazing guest all the way from Canada. Please welcome Kim Foster. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat to you.
Thank you. So I always love to start off the episode by letting the audience get to know our guest. So tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words.
Sure. Okay. So I am an MD turned coach. So my original career, I've practiced family medicine for 20 years as a doctor. And then I pivoted into the coaching world. And that was several years ago. And now I currently wear two professional hats. I help people to, I create content and courses and products to help people really, really live their best lives through mastering their mindset and their confidence and their energy, from a number of different holistic angles. But then I also work as a business mentor, and I train and teach other women who would like to build or who are on their own journey of building their own career as a coach, just like I did, to create that freedom and fulfillment in their own lives and also make the world a healthier place.
Yeah, I love that. So let's backtrack just a little bit because I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey, especially those that are listening to the podcast. We have, amazing audience members that are entrepreneurs. Some are still in the corporate space that might want to be an entrepreneur one day, and some are in the corporate space and they want to stay there. So we have a lot to talk about. But I would love to better understand, going from an MD to a coach, like how did that process happen for you? What happened in your life that you decided to make that transition? I think it's always really important for the audience to understand like how that leap in transition was made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, it was not an easy transition for me to make for a whole lot of reasons. But I mean, some of the factors that contributed to me wanting to make the change, a growing dissatisfaction with the healthcare system. So, there's just in any developed country that I've been in, I spent a lot of time in the UK too, and in the States also. And, even though there are differences in our healthcare systems, some of the same deep-seated problems are there. And so I just, became increasingly dissatisfied and frustrated with my role in medicine, in trying to help people, which really ended up always just being me putting out fires, me, slapping Band-Aids on people, because really healthcare as it is currently delivered in most places that I know of and any place that I worked at is really just focused on the reactive treatment of sick care, as
Yeah.
opposed to what I was really drawn to and had always been interested in, but just didn't realize when I was 17 and decided that I wanted to be a doctor, didn't realize that this wasn't really part of medicine, modern medicine, was helping people to prevent getting sick in the first place and helping people in a more holistic way, not just prescribing medication, but, really helping them in empowering them to change their own lives and take control of their own well-being. So that was a big part of it for me, is that I realized that I was just, in the wrong room. I could spend the next several years banging my head against a wall, trying to change the system, trying to, try and find the right way of working in this industry, in the healthcare industry, or I could find a better way for me and choose happiness and fulfillment for me, and try to help people in the way that I wanted to. And so that was a huge catalytic factor for me in terms of, and then finding the world of coaching. Like, coaching didn't exist really when I was in medical school, and when I was training to be a doctor, I just didn't know that it was even a thing. And so stumbling upon that and discovering this amazing world of coaching, which was everything that I had really wanted to do, and everything that I believed in, was just like magical to discover that. But then, of course, not so easy actually making the transition into that as my professional work life, because life was complicated. I had kids, we had a mortgage, like there was just a lot of reasons, like logistic reasons, why it was tricky to make that transition, but also identity reasons and stuff that, like, I really realized that there were a lot of inner barriers to me transitioning into changing my career completely. So, there's a lot of inner barriers, outer barriers, all kinds of stuff that I had to kind of work through to make the jump.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are actually being authentic, Kim, and talking about it, because especially with social media, there's a lot of just make the leap, make it happen, take action. And I think it's important for people to recognize that, no, there's a lot of factors that come into play, such as, having that identity crisis of, you've been this for so long that you maybe potentially you defined yourself as this, and really reconstructing, what that looks like mentally. Also having kids and paying bills and stability, and really creating a disruption, because essentially that's what happens is when you try to make that transition, there is a disruption that happens in every area of your life. So talk with us a little bit about how you decided to, like, what was the first step, and how did you get that courage to decide to make that transition into coaching, even though I'm sure there was a lot of fear? Was it gradual? Did you just rip the Band-Aid off one day? How did you make it happen?
It was gradual. I wish that I mean, there were sort of some Band-Aid ripping events that happened, like, as we went along, but, it was a pretty gradual transition because, just wasn't really an easy thing to leave the safe territory of being a doctor. I mean, I was in a career that had, it's got a very it's stable for sure. It's like recession proof, and there's always going to be, I never had any fears of not being able to pay my bills or, any of that kind of thing. And then also just the image, the reputation, like, I would love to say that stuff didn't affect me, but the idea, I had to deal with a lot of stuff about worries about what other people thought, including my family, including people who really cared about me, like friends, family, all sorts of people were really concerned about this idea that I would be leaving the stable, well understood world to go into the wild west of coaching. Like, what even is that? It sounds completely flaky, and it sounds like there's no way you can make money at that. And, all the legitimate fears of not people who wanted me to do poorly, but they wanted me to do well, and they were worried about me. So, of course that influenced how I felt about it. So I kind of was, baby stepping my way in and trying to surround myself with people who got it, right? Because I was all my peers seemed to be quite content continuing on in, like, professional peers continuing on in medicine. There was lots of grumbling always about, the job and things, but for the most part, nobody seemed to be actually trying to make a change like I wanted to. So I needed to seek out community of people who really wanted to create something new and different and maybe scary, but also exciting in their own lives. And so that really helped me a lot in terms of seeking out coaching and mentorship and, programs, and just getting myself in rooms with people who were making a big change.
Yeah, I think that's really important. We at Rise Up For You, we talk about building your own personal counsel, and partly because so many individuals, actually all individuals, they carry energy and they carry their own beliefs, right? And so
Yes.
we talk a lot about confidence here too, which is something that you have been alluding to, is like having that self-confidence to take action. And the people that are around you can either hinder that or they can elevate that self-confidence. And especially during a transitional time where you want to make the leap or you want to, move further faster, we have to be strategic. I always say strategic, and who are the people that are around you that are going to make that happen? Otherwise, potentially they can crush your confidence with the fear that they might have. Not that it's malicious, but it's natural for people when they have fear to want to support you and then push their fear onto you, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to pivot a little bit, because one of the great things that I love about you is that, you made the transition. You went from an MD to an entrepreneur. You built the wellness school for coaching and teaching people how to coach, which is what you're doing. But I want to talk a little bit more about the core skill that you have, which is the wellness part, if that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially my team and I, we work every day with corporations and executives and high-performing entrepreneurs. And the challenge is that so many of these high-performing people are high-performing in their career and not their health. So while they're, building a business, making money, like absolutely crushing it in the career space, their stress, their habits when it comes to health, the things that are putting into their mind and their body are kind of falling by the wayside, and eventually it catches up to them and then it impacts them. So I want to kind of, I guess, wear both hats, like as an entrepreneur, which you are, that also understands the importance of health. Can we dive into that a little bit? Because I would say it is one of the bigger challenges we see with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into that, because I agree completely. I mean, I see it all the time. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. So when we really talk about the whole being here at Rise Up For You versus the career being. And
Mhm.
when we work with clients and we assess them, the health pillar is always the lowest, right? It's always I really have to go to the doctor. I haven't gone in years. I've been putting it like on the back burner, and I don't have time to go walking or do anything when it comes to moving my body. I just grab and go when I eat. So first, I just want to talk about the impact that has on performance and dive a little bit into how when you take care of yourself, then you can take care of others.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you absolutely said it. Like, it's just that it's not sustainable, and it's also part of being a high achiever too, right? So like, because we kind of create these artificial boundaries. Oh, this is me in my professional life. I'm a high achiever over here. And then we have this bucket of like, oh, but my personal health, well-being, that's kind of secondary. But it's an artificial barrier. It is, especially for entrepreneurs or people who are building a personal brand, or like an executive who a lot of it is on them. If you
Yes.
actually don't have any of that foundation to support the work that you're doing, you might be able to like grit your teeth and muscle your way through for a limited period of time until you're going to ultimately crash and something is going to happen. Your body can compensate for being pushed to the limit to up to a certain point, and then it will decompensate. There's a really great book by Gabor Mate called The Body Says No. Your body is either you're going to have to take a break, or your body is just going to force you to do so. So much better, of course, to get ahead of that and to actually put into place some practices, some really simple things, habits, strategies that are going to support your mission to achieve big things and do big things in your life, so that you've got that longevity with your career and you can really, go further and far and higher.
Yeah. So let's break this down a little bit more practically, for the high-performing executive that's like, that sounds great, but I'm working all day and I'm taking meetings and I have clients overseas. And then by the time I'm done with work, I'm completely exhausted. And then I just go home and I eat whatever's available, or I Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever it is. So what are some, maybe it's just small things that we can start to implement for those that are constantly on the go? And I would even like to add in for those that travel, because I can speak, from my own personal experience as an entrepreneur and a business owner. What gets me is traveling, right? You travel so much,
Yeah.
you're speaking, you're training, you do good all week, and then you get on a plane and you do a retreat, and then it kiboshes it with all like the food and the traveling. So I'd love to just a couple things that you can give to help get these individuals back on track and even start thinking about their health as a top priority.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is really easy to just say, oh, make yourself a priority. And people are like, oh, that sounds great, but I can't do it. So you're right. Like, we have to get into actual strategies. But I have to say that the very first strategy is addressing your mindset on this, because a lot of people, most of us, fall into this all or nothing mindset. So we think, okay, so, especially high achievers, you think, okay, well, if I want to get fit, I need to go to the gym for an hour. And if I don't, and I don't have time to go to the gym for an hour, so forget it. No point. No, what's to be gained from 10 minutes of something? Or is it really going to make a difference if I walk the stairs one time versus taking the elevator or whatever? We all tend to fall into that all or nothing mindset. So that is really the first step, is to catch yourself when you are kind of letting yourself off of the hook, because you're making it mean that, oh, if I can't do it perfectly, because high achievers tend to be perfectionists too, right? If I can't have the perfect meal plan, if I can't adhere to the perfect workout schedule, then never mind. I'll just postpone that until I actually can, which of course we all know is going to be never, unless you actually, start to prioritize it. So that's really the first thing, is to get out of that all or nothing mindset, and then get strategic and look at, okay, well, what can I actually do with the time that I have? And it's not going to be an hour to go to the gym and do a 90-minute hot yoga class. That's not happening. Fine. But what could you do? So, honestly, walking places, taking the stairs, parking a little bit further from where your destination is, and walk that a little extra bit. One strategy that I love for people who are on the phone a lot and have a desk job is to do walking meetings or walking phone calls. So if you've got some phone calls that you need to make, there's no reason why you need to be seated at a desk taking those phone calls. Just sort of plan it out. It takes a little bit of planning ahead of time so that you know where you're going to be walking, so that you can actually listen and hear. But just though that movement is really beneficial. Or for people who don't have an environment where they can actually get out and walk, a treadmill under your desk, a standing desk. There's a lot of little things that we know add up to a big change when you're doing it on a daily or regular basis. So it doesn't have to look like you think it has to look in terms of what you'd like your workouts to be. But if you're able to kind of shift and say, and kind of enter into problem solving mode, which is another strength of high achievers too, right? Is that they're creative and capable of finding solutions for their work life. So turn those same skills onto this problem of, okay, I got to get some more activity in my day. I'm spending way too much time sitting at my desk. So what are some ways that I can just sneak in little extra bits of movement, some of those things that I suggested? But that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I was thinking about my vice president, because she has a little treadmill under her desk. And every time we have a team meeting, not so much with clients, but whenever we have a team meeting, she'll just, she's walking on it and, taking notes, and cause every day we have team meetings. So even something like that, that's a small hack. But what I really hear you saying goes back to number one, which is the mindset. Because even with number two, individuals have to sit down and commit and kind of create a small little action plan of the changes and the shifts they can make. It doesn't have to be this big plan, but even if it's, okay, every time I have this meeting, I'm going to walk on my treadmill, or every time I'm on the phone, I'm going to go outside and walk, but really being intentional about how they're going to do it versus just winging it naturally. Would you say so or no?
100%. Yeah. I mean, because that's the basis. There are solutions for all of these issues and all of anybody's schedule. There's solutions and workarounds, but you have to be even open to the possibility to look for those solutions and come up with those ideas or seek out those ideas in the first place. And I find that a lot of people are stuck right at that starting gate of thinking, well, right now I'm way too busy. I can't even begin to think about this. So I'm just going to put it in the back burner and, wait until I have an easier schedule, which again is never going to happen. So it's that mindset of like, okay, I'm being very all or nothing about this. Let's see if I can actually come up with some creative solutions, simple things that I can try.
Yeah, I always say busy blocks your blessings. It's like, I don't know one person that's not busy in the world.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, exactly. Nobody is like, no, everybody's busy. Nobody has like a bunch of leisure time, free time to kind of sit there and craft the absolute perfect morning routine. And, like especially entrepreneurs, like morning routines is a big topic. A lot of people talk about that. And I am a big believer in morning routines, but does it have to look like what we see on Instagram, which a morning routine would take like 2 hours? And who has that in the morning of like all the perfect things, and it's perfectly curated and it's color coordinated and has all the right stuff? Okay, that's ideal, sure, but could you just do 2 little things in your morning just to start yourself on, just to decompress, get rid of some of all those stress hormones, which are going to wreak havoc with you, over time. So are there a couple of very short things that you can do? Breathing exercises, a little bit of stretching, something like that, right? It doesn't have to take 2 hours. It can take 5 minutes, and that every day will make a difference.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I created a post on LinkedIn today, just coincidentally, but the post was me working out, which I never put on LinkedIn, but I'm like, you know what, today I'm going to put this picture of me working out. And I captioned it that self-care is the highest level of service you can give as a leader and an entrepreneur, because really understanding that when you take care of yourself, that it increases your capacity to give to other people. And I think especially as executives and entrepreneurs and leaders, we forget that aspect. We think we're doing better by just going. And we don't realize that we're probably only giving like 50% of our full capability because we haven't refueled ourselves and we haven't gotten ourselves back up to par.
Yeah, exactly. It's a form of self-sabotage if you don't prioritize it. And so, yeah, again, like you can kind of muscle your way through it for a short period of time, which can maybe create this illusion that you can do that. But it's definitely going to catch up to you. And I mean, it's like investing in anything, right? Like it's that doing a little bit of work up front is going to reap major benefits down the road, because you're going to be able to sustain a higher level of performance for much longer than your competitors or, anyone else that you can think of who is going to, kind of poop out because they are like, they're really not doing well because they didn't prioritize this. So yeah. And then also like the service element of it too, like it is very hard to be, properly focused on what you need to be focused to help other people, to do your own good work in the world. If you're struggling with fatigue, with brain fog, with like low energy level, with poor sleep, like all of that stuff is just, how can you possibly support other people and do your work in the world if you are struggling with all of those pieces?
Yeah, I love that. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview and ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So first question is, if you can leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget here at Rise Up For You. What would your golden nugget be?
I would say, kind of building on what we've been talking about here, is just don't wait for things to be perfect before you make a change, right? It's like, and I mean, what did you say? Perfection stops. Did you say something? Or no, maybe you said, yeah. Anyway.
Care versus service, and then like perfection prevents you from your potential. I think
exactly. Yeah. Yes. And that's it. Like we get into this like, oh, it has to be perfect, or I have to not be worried about anything or feel any fear or anything like that before I make a move. Yeah. But you can start to make some changes in your life positively towards either the career that you want or the health that you want or whatever it is that you want before waiting for conditions to be perfect.
Yeah, I love that. And at Rise Up For You, we're very big on values. And, even when the company was started, we had values that were non-negotiable that haven't been shifted. So for you, what's one value that you would say is an absolute non-negotiable in your life?
For me, and for people that are in my orbit, it's empowerment. And that goes back to when I was transitioning from being an MD into being a coach, is that um, I just feel that it is so important for me to have agency over my own future, my own life. And I want that for other people too, is that, being able to take control and direct your own, achieve your own goals, do things in your own life to make your life and that of other people better is, we all win when that happens.
I love that. Now, one more question for you, but before I ask, tell the audience a little bit about you. Where can they find you? I know you have an amazing YouTube channel with a ton of content. And brag a little bit about where we can check you out.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, of course, my website, drkimfoster.com, that's sort of my home base for all the different variety of things that I'm doing. But yeah, my YouTube channel, that's currently where I pour most of my energy into these days, especially in terms of content creation. We just passed 80,000 subscribers, which I'm fairly happy about. I'm heading towards that silver play button, which I'm pretty, I want that. Talk about high.
We'll get there. How about Rise Up For You community?
Yes. Yeah. So, come and check me out on YouTube, because that's where I post content about all of these topics: personal development and wellness and achieving your best life and all of those kinds of things. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Very good. And final question for you is, as you know, we are Rise Up For You. So what comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase?
Yeah. So rise up for you. When I hear that phrase, and I love that this is your, company name, because it's beautiful. It sounds to me like, stepping into your potential, which is also, of course, going to mean overcoming a lot of limitations, internal limitations, external limitations, like facing challenges, but really achieving and stepping into that true potential that we all have. So I love that.
I love that. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Rise Up For You podcast. It was an honor to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. Yet again, another amazing episode. Don't forget that we release new content here on our podcast every single week, bringing you amazing entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives from around the world for one reason only, and that is to enhance your potential and make an impact in the world. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you next time. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel, and check us out on social media. We are everywhere, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook, at our simple handle at Rise Up For You. On every single platform, it's exactly the same. And we're providing new content on every single platform, so there's something different everywhere. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, and connect with us on social media. I'll see you next time.